I was not so into that kind of music, to be honest. So I learned everything about electronic music from Edgar himself.
Hello and welcome to the Keyboard Chronicles, a podcast for keyboard players. I'm your host, David Holloway, and I'm thrilled as always to be here with you. And I'm also super thrilled to be joined by a guest co-host. Now, some of you that are long-term listeners or viewers of the show may know Matt Goodluck. We've had the pleasure of having Matt on before. How are you, Matt?
I'm great, thanks, David. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
And for those that remember, Matt is a massive prog rock fan and also a huge ambient music fan. And he's also happens to be the better looking part of the Echoes of Pink Floyd outfit that Paul Bindig is part of. And unlike Paul, he bothers to turn up. Isn't that right, Matt?
That's right. Yeah, you didn't even have to pay me.
That's right. So the reason Matt's here is, it's a good one, Matt. How about you introduce our guest for this episode?
Yeah, we're thrilled to have none other than Thorsten Quaeschning from Tangerine Dream on today's episode.
Yeah, amazing.
And he's just done a fantastic album with Marillion's Steve Rothery, so we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. For those that love gear talk and a bit of modular talk, let alone a good creative discussion, Thorsten goes into quite some depth on a whole range of issues. And unfortunately, he did have to jump on a plane, so we only had an hour of his time and we could have talked for 6, but there's lots to enjoy in here. So yeah, we'll let you enjoy what he has to say and we'll talk to you after the show. Thorsten, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, sir. How are you this fine Tuesday morning?
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's sunny. I think 22 degrees something. Yeah, a nice morning in Berlin.
Excellent. It's a pleasure to have you, and you've proved your politeness by not pointing out it's a Monday, not a Tuesday, so I appreciate that. So let's jump into a chat first and foremost about this amazing new album you've completed with Steve Rothery, Bioscope. So I'm super excited to talk about this, and I thought we'd just kick off with a little bit of discussion on what was the momentum for actually getting together with Steve in the first place.
So we played a festival cruise in 2014 called Cruise to the Edge after the Yes album, Close to the Edge, because Yes were the main act and there were bands like Saga, Steve Hackett, Queensryche, Stickman, and also Tangerine Dream and Marillion. But it was just a small shed, and we worked with the same booker after that years. And so we met in 2018 in Berlin before a Marillion concert, just for coffee, just to talk and yeah, without any big task or master plan, just, okay, let's meet, let's talk about music and how we can get along together. And so we planned a little session in my studio, actually in that room at that time, but it's not my studio anymore. In February or March 19, it was 4 days and maybe less, and was the first guitar player who ever asked me for a MIDI crop for his tremolo. To be in sync with the sequences, and I thought, this is great. This is perfect. And then normally it took more than 1 year. I think I had a couple of solo shows in the UK in 2020, February again. So all my modular stuff and lots of synths were in the UK. So we took the opportunity to record some sessions in the Marillion studio called the Record Club, mid-England. And after that, we thought about, let's work together on something. If it's an EP, it's an album, it's just some collection of music or pieces, it's fine too. And we regularly met in December because of our touring schedules. And Marillion and Tangerine Dream never toured in December. Don't know why, but it's like that. So was 1 week normally in Berlin in my other studio, the main studio. Yeah, and last year we were close to a finished product, bad word, but we thought about just, this is an album. But then before I programmed like more techno-esque loops and more like modular percussion. It was very electronica. And we talked about adding a human drummer to it. And we watched a lot of YouTube videos. And Alex Reeves from Elbow, and he also played with people like Nick Cave as well. And so it's good for all words. And he is an unbelievable drummer. And we recorded his tracks and contributions in February this year. Only 2 days, 1.5 days editing on top in his studio in London. So I fly over to the UK, and it worked very well, I guess. It was gluing things together in a way.
Thorsten, I know that the album takes a lot of its inspiration from the development of the moving image throughout the ages. I'm just wondering if you can briefly take us through each of the tracks and give us a little bit of insight into the compositional approach and the themes for those songs.
Most of them were, I don't like the idea of an improvisation because it's sometimes connected to muscle memory playing. And so I like more the idea or the concept of real-time composition, which is probably the same for some people, but it's a very big difference in my head, at least. Because maybe with a goal on the horizon or a shape of things instead of just feeling the moment by itself. And it was created more in the moment, with the idea to have concepts. So I played 3 concerts with Steve while the Tangerine Dream tour, and I think was quite a unusual experience for him, because we have 40 something between 30 and 50 minutes each concert, which was called session, and this is freeform. And so he played these sessions too, and sometimes it feels like there's lots of room, lots of space, but don't fill it with many notes. So I think it was even the idea of very long form music, which is very strange talking about progressive rock bands. Normally, they are the people with all the unbelievable long pieces. But if you play with Tangerine Dream, this is a different page. So even our last album was the first vinyl. It was double vinyl. The first vinyl 1, side A, was 1 piece, and vinyl 2, side B, was also only 1 piece. So it's always some 20 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. Probably with less single parts in it. So the involving structure of morphing things from one part to another without having a break that works like a signal to get to the next part is probably very different from the so it was played in the moment, and then just recorded a half hour, then take 1 piece of it, just to bar 64 something, and work in kind of controlled studio environments on it. And this was also probably a very good thing that we always sat in the same room. I think there's so many aspects of it. So it sounds esoteric, but it isn't. You have the idea of hearing with the ears of the other person in the same room because you try to please. So I sometimes sitting, arranging and scripting little lines in the panoramas So I know there's a movement from left 60 to left 452. Probably the other person in the room wouldn't recognize this. And so maybe you make it a little bit more, maybe you change it more drastically because there's a second person. And I think this is good sometimes for the music, because it's great to have very minimalistic details. But the idea that, so I'm sitting here 1 hour and it's moving slightly over there left. So, what are you thinking I'm doing? So, but even the, like the look in the eye check while doing drastically effectings or, looping his guitar, and at one point it was a sequenced filter bank, a Moog filter, or kind of the hard side of granular synthesis to make it all grainy, and then it's easier to look him into the eyes and look. I'm doing this, and okay, he's smiling, and he's instead of doing this, making rough mix and Dropbox and waiting 2 days for a response, which is maybe what it did to my guitars. So this was great. I'm not so good in naming folders. This is one I learned from Steve. So normally it's just the date or the the last song of the album is called Kaleidoscope. It was Friday pop song. Because it was a Friday evening after dinner, and Steve came up with that like rock riff in a good way, and probably would never have done something like that ever, but it works. And so I know that don't maybe because of the day of the name Friday on my folder. So I thought this should sound a little bit like The Cure and Joy Division. So I played all the Solina stuff. I have the MK 3, which is okay, but it's a keyboard chronicle, so I can. It's my time to talk about that. It's not 3; it's different. On 4, you have a tiny LED on it, on the modulation, but on 3, and yeah, okay. And sometimes my Solina decides which notes aren't playing because of temperatures, because of the full paraphonic thing. Yeah, but on that day, I think it was D major. It worked in that that key. Sometimes we even started with a middle part and added another part before, after it, half a year. Oh, no, probably not half a year. 3 years later. So there's not like a continuum working process per piece of music. After all, it's not more than 2 months, I guess, together in the studio, and maybe 2 weeks editing and maybe tweaking, re-recording things. Steve in his studio, and some modular overdubs, which was slightly detuned or spreaded detuned, so that you can do it with Melodyne, but it's not the same. So try to find a sound close to that, or a different pad. So I probably even recorded a little bit drier when it comes to reverb, because I usually use a lot of reverbs, and the end final mix is for me it's very dry. There's space on it, but it's not normally just doing it's a lot. I love replica and night sky, big sky, and what's the name? Starlab, the modulars. But yeah, and just doing the big something on it. So
Yeah, that and
Yeah.
it's an absolutely amazing sounding album, and I'm fascinated, obviously, Thorsten. What were the key pieces of gear? And you've mentioned some of the effects and some of the stuff you've used, but what were some of the standout instruments to you that you used in that album that you're so pleased that you used? I mean, you've mentioned the Selena, but just what were your key go-to instruments?
So my modular is very important to me, and it's a good way. Normally, I'm just probably would editing or changing sounds until the end, which I'm doing when I'm doing soundtrack work because of the idea of soundtrack work, and some scenes are missing on the day before the picture lock. But if you work with the modular system, you are forced to press record at one point because you can't save any preset, and for me it's a good thing. And there's a mixture of Eurorack and Marienburg, which is a 5 unit, which is unbelievably good sounding, and lots of Moogs. If it's too nerdy, so please say that. So
No,
it's even 3 different voyages.
Wow.
And but they're sounding different. So even the oscillator inside the Voyager is sounding so different. So it's, there's this one of the select white ash things I really like, more for if it comes to soloing, which the warm, shiny, and crazy diamond-esque thing. The Sparkle Black, I think, is 3 years younger. It's much better for basses. Don't know why. Live, because 2 keyboard Moogs on stage, it's a problem I have. I'm using RME, and it's sounding even a bit different. And like also do use the Minitor, also a white and a black one, and the Serene. For some more crunchy, not for basses, but it's also very one. So it doesn't sound like anything else, I think. So for pads, sometimes classics, Jupiter 8, Prophet 8 as well, not 5.8. Sparklings from Quantum Waldorf sometimes.
Yep.
Without using the compress, not because then it sounds strange. It's a lot. So I try to avoid the typical 80s, 90s sometimes on that project or band. So I think it's no GD 800, no Wave Station, no M1, no D50. I think it's Z1. It's on the pad. The big brother of the prophecy. Let's go. Decent for some pads too.
Okay.
But the first version, I don't like the GT one. I think the first version is more grippy. Sometimes a mixture of everything. So, but the Mellotron, I'm using the Mannequin electronic Memotone. Real life is 7.4 seconds without a loop, and like lead sounds Moog as well. Sometimes Op6 for the crispy ones. I really like the Peak as well from Novation, and the Model Argon 8 for Modular. For Granular, I have the GR1 from Tasty Ships, and this is a small, but it works quite well. Has a very different sound to the Granular engine from the Quantum. Mostly that. So there's not so many plugins on it.
No.
I don't think there are. The piano sound. So that's I don't miking a piano or like the grand piano as well as some sample sounds. To be honest, it's and it's sounding good, and it's one of the Olafur Arnolds thing, and I really like his sound that you hear the hammer on the string more, and that you can adjust the amount of that. And not player's noise is something I don't use it to make fun of the plugin. You can have a volume amount of noises from the player, like don't know if I'm need this. Yeah, and lots of effects. So using lots of pedals, Strymon, also the magneto, the timeline, the Mobius, the modulation thing, and the sunset things for a little bit crunchy things. The what's the name of the amp stripe? Iridium as well.
Oh, yeah.
And some strange kind of modulations with stuff from other brands.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's nearly it. Probably I forgot some things, but MS-20, yeah, always through this distortion pedal.
Thorsten, I think it was an inspired collaboration to do something with Steve. I think his melodic style really suits your playing very well, and I think it's a great album. Do you think we can see further collaborations between you and Steve in the future?
Absolutely, yeah. So,
yes.
So there's a second album is planned as well, and hopefully it wouldn't take as long as 6 years for doing this. We're going on tour in December. Only 5 shows, 2 in Netherlands, 2 Germany, 1 in Poland. But I think it will work to grow as a band. So as we wrote that album, there was no drummer in mind because there was some very sometimes four on the floor on it. Some even remained of my four on the floor things. But to have the if you know that there will be a drummer would change things as well, I think. And we are very keen on, yes, let's write an album for maybe a little bit straightforward, but probably it's ambient prog again.
Yes. Having that organic element really helps to add something different to an electronic album.
Absolutely. So sometimes his guitar playing melody wise has a function of a singer. And it's unbelievable how fast he can create melody lines out of nowhere to sometimes maybe not so common chord sequences, and he's very, very much love in detail for sound as well. So there was in his studio there was just so many amps he can switch to, and I played, I think, 40 minutes, and he was only playing one note all the time, and I thought, probably he hates what I'm doing. Yeah, but he just tried to find the exactly right sound, and then it was all there, and it was ding, you got but there, so probably it's sometimes maybe the same feeling for him when I'm standing like 60, 80 minutes for the modular system and just patching things. So, and in his environment where he can change, I like that top to this speaker and probably even something in between and that microphone setting. So it's everything there. So there's,
I think it's fair to say, Thorsten, you're both veteran musicians, and I'm sure you've both spent time looking at each other, admiring what you're doing. And I do want to sort of take a bit of a step back, if I can, to when you weren't a veteran musician. What was your start in music, Thorsten? What was your musical upbringing that led you to, in this amazing career that you're in?
So I learned, I've started as a violin player in a youth radio station in the 80s. And then I always played flute and like baroque flutes, piano. I played in the 90s drums in a swing band. And always played piano and violin. But my first band was actually as a violin player, was close to Numeral Army, but it was too. So it was the 90s and was an acoustic violin, and I'm have no maybe Ponty, but there was no chance to get to electric violin for me, and the microphones, and it was young, so I played synths in that band. It was kind of more than goth rock. And then from goth rock, someone gave me a lot of progressive rock music, and most of them, probably 1/3, were Marillion. So it was for reasons, was Nursery Crime, Sailing In by the Pound, Foxtrot, Trick of a Tail. Don't know why, because Lampstone Broadboy weren't on that thing. But Misplaced Childhood, Season's End, Holiday in Eden, and Fugazi, and King Crimson Call of Crimson King. From that, I started to dive into the progressive rock music, the Genesis, Marillion, sometimes yes, but more King Crimson, and mostly from the Graph Generator, because I think that was the connection between Gothic rock and progressive rock, because from the Graph Generator, Peter A. Hamel is a quite dark guy, and there's some spooky things in it. So I was learning classical music beside everything, and try to make that. And I played in a lot of bands and studied composing and piano. Then I think 2003, I got a phone call from someone from Tangerine Dream's office. And that was, he was working for Foreign Affairs in the office from Edgar. And he was the singer of a Gothic metal band called Progressive Sepulchral Mantis. And I was known, I also played a lot of strange dark metal, like it's now called extreme metal, like death metal, black metal, things like that, because I had, I love sampling and even in the 90s, and I had, not the Archive. I had 2 of the A3000 from Yamaha, but you had 128 megabytes on it. So it's not the 32. So it took, I think, 6.5 minutes to load the unbelievable huge choir sound in that time. And extreme metal was keyboard-wise in that days all about strings, choirs, French horn, and doing a 35-second intro. Yeah. And so I played a lot of black and death metal things as well, and that was the reason the guy from Subcommentus knew me, and so Edgar asked for someone, do you know keyboard player? And I asked 3 people, I guess. And there was a very detailed to-do list for, do you know that? It was unbelievable. So I was always was a Cubase guy, because I came from Atari. So if I had used Logic, I wouldn't be here now. Yeah, because say you have to use Cubase, and not only for 1 week, and that. Yeah. And there was even a studio sampler, called Giga Sampler, was designated PC only for a sampler, and worked with that, and had luck that I played a lot of Korg things in that time. So it was Prophecy, Wave Station, EX, T1, because of the keys, not for the sound, but things like that, and JD800, things like that, but were more important to him than knowing a modular system, to be honest. I didn't know. I never patched a modular system or programmed a step sequencer before I joined Tangerine Dream. Wow. And that is very strange. I was the normal keyboard guy playing it live and pads, melodies, things like that. So I came to his studio in Vienna and Tangerine Dream studio, and they were just composing for orchestra and bands. It was Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy Purgatorio. Paradiso was the connection of both. And because of my classic composing study background, I probably also got the job because I can write scores and the notes and transpose things for the trumpet. And after 1.5 years sitting on Edgar's side in the studio and just I learned everything about electronic music because I heard a little bit of Prodigy, Nine Inch Nails, but I was not so into that kind of music, to be honest. So I learned everything about electronic music from Edgar himself. So probably the best teacher ever. And there are so many rules for music or Tangerine Dream-esque music that he elaborated in like 40, 50 years. Even the number of steps, repeating the idea of uneven intervals or step orders like 15 against 16 against. You can use that like the fourths and the sevenths in intervals to make it more tense, and then the release of keeping rolling. And there are strict rules for everything and scales in Tangerine Dream music. And so I had 1.5 years learning this, and it was so interesting, and it was so different world. And in 2004 we started to compose the first album together with a son at that time called Jeanne d'Arc. Was released in 2005, and since 2005 I'm there. Yeah, I think it's more than 70 albums, something like that.
Wow.
We recorded a lot. So we composed door to door in his house in Vienna and sometimes in Berlin. There was a big studio, and yeah.
And Thorsten, I need to ask you, obviously, Edgar and you worked well together. What do you feel was the sign that relationship was going so well? I mean, obviously the Cubase issue was one part of it, but what worked so well to the extent that obviously after Edgar's unfortunate passing and so on, that the mantle was handed to you? What was the secret of the success of that relationship?
We both like to work. Sounds strange, but so Edgar's one of the most hard-working guys I ever met. So there was some Dropbox invitation for a new track on Christmas Eve. And it could so maybe what do you think about 27th? Things like that. But in the first weeks, he asked me if I ever were in the garden. And there's a garden. And yeah, there's also a big pool. Oh, great. Really, you never was. Well, there's a terrace and there's a big garden behind it. No, I was in the studio the last 3 weeks. So, and I like to work. So really, I love sitting on music and spending my time. But sometimes it's like, it's not, I have to do music. I feel guilty if I don't do music. So if you spend 3 days without playing something, that doesn't feel right. And I think that attitude was very important, and what is the most important thing, and it is not hard to describe because you can't force it. You have to find a common language about music when it came to atmospheres, to like the dynamic envelopes and even sounds. So Tangerine Dream sounds are not related to instruments that normally physically existing. So it's not so. But if you listen to meter, that sounds like a bow, a bowie, or this like a clarinet. There's a string. There's a trumpet. Tangerine Dream is more surrealistic. The envelopes and filter movements are not connected to this is a harp sound, something that like a harp maybe is pizzicato would be even close, but the idea to have very long involving things, and talking about that kind of sounds without doing strange noises with your mouth, but describing the idea behind it, and why do you even the idea of resonance or peak, if you think MS wise, it's related to the key, because there's a notch in it, and so it's gaining one frequency and things like that. For some musicians, it's great. Then it doing this. As for some musicians, no, I like the pew sound. No, but it's a wrong note inside the resonance. And I think to find a common language and to not to ask why this is 15 minutes, and try to finding new sounds, and try to find maybe there is no new chord sequence anymore. I think it's not possible, but to find a not so often used chord sequence, and try to find a different sound on it, and then just try to involve that idea.
And Thorsten, you've raised a really great point. I just want to butt in there about new sounds, because I know since you've been involved with Tangerine Dream, the sound has obviously continued to development. It feels like it's been respectful to the original catalogue during the 70s and 80s, but you've also modernised the sound. Is that a weight on your shoulders, the legacy that's been handed on to you, and how do you deal with that and keep modernising? Because that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And you can't please anyone. So there was no moment when people didn't say it, that isn't sound like Tangerine Dream anymore. So I'm used to that. No, the strange thing is Edgar had a kind of a problem with analog and old gear in 2000 something, because he was so bored about the detuning of it, and he was so happy I'm using that, and this is just a very tune-stable plugin or things like that. And I tried to bring them back, and record them very much in tune. And it's quite hard. I try to come as close to the original recordings, because there is a compositions, so I have to play. There's no, I wouldn't improvise on a composition from someone else. So it's not my type of thing. But I try to, but it must sound homogenic in a way if you play concerts. And this is the hard part. So sometimes it's a mixture. So it's not everything is live. Some arpeggiators and the drums are synced with the audio MTC, so the sequences are starting every time at the same point. So I can change presets, and the sequences came through the modular and the some mini towers, some the RME. So it's always the same bass live. Because it's running through that. And my modular system has 10 DI boxes. The Vermona thing said it's like having presets live. So I have the CV MIDI converter, and so I have like 10 presets in the modular. But Tangerine Dream were involving or progressing in a way every 5 years. So you can't please anyone. So one of my favorite bands, they also are mastering our albums with Tangerine Dream, my solo album, and even the Bioscope album, because I really love the guys. Sigur Rós in Reykjavik, Iceland, in a studio called Sunklaflin, which is public swimming pool in Icelandic. They said they really liked Tangerine Dream before the sequences came in. So they are a big fan of Artem and Sight. And by Fedra, it was, So, but they are right. So if you love Sight, Fedra is totally sounding different to theirs 2 years after that. And if you listen to Exit in like 82 or Underwater Sunlight 86 and then things from the 90s, you probably won't believe that's the same band.
Completely different.
Yeah. So, but if you listen album to album, which is 1 week, something like that, in time, you see a red line between it. And I try to not do it, to be very respectful to the old stuff, but don't make it a museum. Because that would be probably sometimes easier. But if you're a musician, there is a a longing to create new music, and the opportunity to have the great moments, endorphin moments where you feel, I think that's not bad, but you also can fail big. That's a risk. But it's all about that, I guess, not playing just Fedra, Rubicon, Sorcerer in 3 years circuit.
And that's great, Thorsten. I think, you really illustrate the point that you're continuing to move forward as a musician, but you're still being very respectful to the past as well. Following on from that, Tangerine Dream obviously has very distinct eras throughout their catalogue over the years. You've got the Virgin years and the Blue years and et cetera. You're going through the Quantum era. How would you define that just beyond the personnel side of things, so aesthetically?
So the Quantum era was the first that was named before the era itself. So it's hard to describe that. So it was normally related to the record company, so like the Virgin years. And there was, I guess, there was no very crystallized plan to say, after 5 years, we will leave Virgin. So probably not. But the Quantum idea is that everything is connected to each other. That things you play in the room are related even to the audience. So I'm doing as an introduction of every concert. So I never spoke to the audience, because if you do instrumental music, it's grounding. The human voice is grounding things very much. But sometimes it seems for the audience very arrogant because of that. And there were some harsh critics because of that. So normally I said even not the name of Hoshiko and Paul, but it was appearing on the LED wall behind me, and even Take a Safe Trip Back Home in the language, was in the language of the country on the LED wall. But now I'm speaking a little bit before concert, and we always play the session in the resonance tone or key of the room. You always find difference. Some lights are shaking, and then the ground is shaking. You can the mode bass is very huge. So I destroyed. I opened a door with it. I destroyed an exit sign light with it, while the audience were there, just to show them. And and the exit.
That's right.
Yeah, but it's not esoteric. It's just physics. You can, with a bass sequencer, you can let the room shake in a way, and that's the easy part of it. But to have an idea everything is connected. If I press that button, you will feel it in your stomach, and your chair will move, and we will react differently if you react differently. It's all one. It's in the same room. We see you, we feel you. Sometimes you're clapping, sometimes not. This is country-wise different. Sometimes we play in some countries we're playing opera houses, philharmonic halls, and they are used to just wait until the last note. And sometimes you leave like 3 second space between some tracks. And nothing is happening. So that is affecting the next track, because are they hearing anything or feeling? So everything is connected, and that's the idea of quantum. So it starts with Ulrich Schnauz in 2014. So we played the last 3 concerts, and with Edgar as a 4-piece was Hachiko. Ulrich, Edgar, and me. We're in Australia, Melbourne, Town Hall, and then we played The Sorcerer twice. And the movie were shown behind us, and we played the soundtrack to it. Strangely, the last minutes were totally improvised, and that was really improvised because our version of the movie we rehearsed to was shorter. So we said, we have microphones on stage to talk to each other. And I thought, I don't think that's right. So I think at least 4 minutes, but I have no clue. But probably the 24 pictures per second to 25 in Germany. After 1.5 hours, and then you're missing one picture. It's enough for 4 minutes. Yeah. And sorry. And so it was the last music with Edgar on stage was kind of, okay, let's do some 5 minutes Sorcerer in adding, just add some music to it. And after that, that was a quantum era, because before there was a guitar player, percussion, saxophone, and things like that, and it worked good as Edgar's decision, and but the idea was to come back to like electronic sequencer-driven music, to the core of Tangerine Dream, but with a kind of contemporary approach to it, sound-wise and composition-wise. Then he sadly died 2.5 months later, and really unexpected. So it was like, the last email was like, I bought new sound cards, see you next week in Vienna. But Edgar was the most hardworking person, and there were plans for everything. So it was like strategies for that, and when that happened, and so I was never raising a hand and say, I will do this. I probably won't have done this. This was probably just another like quest from my teacher and master for that kind of music. So it was a strange, the term music director, like I was composing many things and was doing the concert preparations and things like that, since 2011. And so it was his idea, and also the idea that the concept of Tangerine Dream and the philosophy behind it is stronger than anyone involved, so it can last people. So I think there are 24 people, 25. So that's not true, probably more. So in 1967, there was a time where I think everyone was in the band who joined the rehearsal space for one day. I think even there were 6 different lineups from 1967 to early 1968. But it was only Edgar and no one else. So it was a drummer. They had a singer and violin player. They had a bass player with an unbelievable great name, Happy Dieter. And then he met Conor Schnitzler and Klaus Schulze, and the first recording was 1970. Before it was complete different band. But after Ulrich left, now Paul is playing, and I know Paul from the university. He's 2 years younger, but we met, cafeteria and the soul. It was same university, and he's a very staccato-esque player, which is a good addition, I guess, because it's very rhythmical. I never would play things like that. So you don't need the same person twice, and he's leaving room for things, and that's also very much part of the progression. That there's more space in the music, and even we try to come back to the idea that one single sound for a melody is enough. So it's easy to stack things. I think that's something I did not so good in the early 2000s, just stacking sounds, especially lead sounds. So you have a bell, then adding a strange piano. They have some DX7, TG77, the bellish sounds, 5 together, something like that. But it's not brave to do that.
Yeah.
And you don't hear the frequencies that are missing in that sound. And that's a characteristic thing about it, and the charming thing about it. So try to have more confident in sound. So I thought about saying the word melody. So, but coming back to Steve is the first person who did something like a hook or melody, which I don't, when I'm using that term in a good way. I like the idea of motives, which are melody lines, but appears 3 times in 25 minutes. I like the idea to have stuff, okay, that's kind of hookish, but a motive and not a melody line. So Steve is unbelievable doing this. I'm doing motives, and try. So it's the idea where we like to go more single lines, more breathy stuff, for sure sequences, because at the end of the day, it's not so many options. You have 32 steps. You can connect things, you know what I mean, yeah? So it depends on the sequence. I'm using the Schrittmacher from Mannequin for 16 step. You can connect each step to each other. So even the transposition could just move in like fourths, and the others 15 to 16 and the 16ths, and you can do all the polyrhythm stuff with it. And for other things, the Polysec from the Polish company as well. It has 32 steps, 8 lines, so we have 256 LEDs on it, and you see what's happening. Sad thing on that is you don't see the note that is playing. You have to press the button. So that's the best thing about the Schrittmacher. You see 16 notes and you can change them. And you see all 16. Some sequences, I don't get it, to be honest. Well, I like to see the notes. I really love Dieter Döpfer, but a sequencer with like semitones, and it's 1 to 10.
Yeah. Understand. No, it's
I'm using this for filter movements, and it's unbelievably great. But okay, let's do at least 12.
Yes.
It's not. Yeah. Okay. So sorry.
No, I think we're in agreement. No, I think we're in agreement there, Thorsten. And so I know we've got to get you on a plane relatively soon. So I'm going to ask you one last question, which is one that all our guests hate, which is the desert island disc question. So if you had to pick 5 albums to take to a desert island, what would they be?
Whoa. So the very arty answer would be there is an album on mini disc by Brian Eno. Because Brian Eno, the mini disc is the only medium where you don't have a buffer using it. because it's pre-buffering, and it was cutted in, I think, 16 bar pieces. And if you press shuffle, you always hear a never-ending new album. But this probably no won't be 5 leaves left. Nick Drake,
right?
In the wee small hours, Frank Sinatra,
right?
Let's have so Genesis. I can hear it in my head. I listen to it 1,000 times, so I probably don't need it physical. So if I want to listen to First or Fifth or Surplus Ready, it's there. So it's too easy. Disintegration, The Cure, because of teenage-related time reasons, and there's always that's the concept of guilty pleasures is strange because you still like it, and why it's a pleasure guilty. But I really like August and Everything After by Counting Crows.
You're nice.
Yeah, because it's I think I'm missing a word in English. What's their name on Sigur? There's a Sigur Rós album with
yes, Sigur Rós, yes.
Yeah. But what's the name of the
I know the one you mean.
There's a word for it. Yeah.
In the parentheses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because it's not easy to listen in my head because it's even not Icelandic. It's a fantasy language like Copelandic. So it's very hard to get this note by note. You can't learn the words. You could just try to, sound like that. But I think it's that's the reason it feels new if you listen to it again.
Absolutely. Look, wonderful picks. And I think there was a wonderful pick made when you were chosen to be part of Tangerine Dream as well, let alone Steve's pick of you as a collaboration partner on this amazing Bioscope album. We can't thank you enough for your time with this. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've barely scratched the surface, but I know you need to get on a plane. And I know you've only recently been in Australia, but we look forward to seeing you down here again in coming years.
For sure.
Yeah.
And there we have it. Matt, Thorsten was an absolute font of knowledge on so many issues. I think I said in the intro we could have spoken for 6 hours, and I don't think it's a word of a lie.
Absolutely, yeah. What a pleasure to talk to someone like that.
Yeah, it's an absolute honour and a privilege, and we can't thank Thorsten enough for his time. And he literally was jumping on a plane. I never thought to ask him who he was touring with. I'm not sure whether Tangerine Dream are doing more dates or whatever it is, but he's certainly a busy man, and we appreciate him taking the time. And as always, we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. It's hugely appreciated. And Matt, literally couldn't have done this one without you. I'm a Tangerine Dream fan, but it's your knowledge that helped make this show what it was. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, David. I really appreciate you asking me along to this one.
And I'm sure it won't be the last. You hear that, Bindig? Do you hear that? And we also need to call out to our gold and silver supporters. So the amazing Tammy Catcher from Tammy's Musical Stew, thank you as always for your ongoing support. Mike Wilcox at Midnight Mastering. If you do create your own work and you need someone great to mix and master it, Mike is the guy. Dave Bryson, the team at the musicplayer.com forums, thank you as always. And last but definitely not least, and Dewey, this is 2 episodes in a row I've made you last but not least, Dewey Evans from the sunny land of Wales. Thank you, sir, for your support. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Thank you again, Matt. And until then, keep on playing.